Well, here's how it's going to go, okay? Here's how it's going to go. Each of the 10 candidates that are running to beat Donald Trump, President of the United States, will have 2 minutes of an opening statement, followed by 7 minutes of Q&A, then 2 minutes of a closing statement. Now, if any candidate decides to go over that time, they will lose time on their closing statement. All right now? We're going to adhere to the time. I have a clock in front of me. There's transparency here. And without further ado, we're going to get this started, because you want to hear from these candidates who want to represent you. So guys, let's start it off. I would like to present to you our first candidate for this presidential forum, candidates forum at the NAACP. Without further ado, Elizabeth Warren.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Hello. Thank you.
Senator Warren, thank you so much.
It's so good to be here.
It's great to visit with you, yes. We're going to have a conversation.
I am so glad to hear that.
So, you have an opening statement, 2 minutes.
So let me just start out by saying thank you for having me here. It is such an honor to be with a group that has been on the front lines of social, racial, and economic justice forever, and to be here at a time of historic importance for this group, because you have just called for the impeachment of Donald Trump. I read the Mueller report the day it came out. I read into the afternoon and into the night and into the next morning. And when I got to the end, I did not stick my finger in the air and ask about the politics. I did not hesitate. I read it, I knew what it said, and I concluded first that this is a man who has broken the law and he should be impeached. And I said so on that very day. I come to you at a moment of great crisis in this country, a crisis at a time when America's working better and better and better and better for a thinner and thinner slice at the top, while it leaves everyone else behind. The central question of my life's work has been, what's happening to working families in America? Why is the road getting so much rockier and so much steeper? And for families of color, even rockier and even steeper. And the answer is, it's no accident. Race lies right at the heart of this issue. Look around us. Hate crimes are on the rise. The black-white wealth gap continues to increase. Voting rights are undercut. None of that is an accident. We live in an America where the plan of the President of the United States is to turn people, working people, against working people.
All right.
Let me just finish, I'll take it at the end.
Okay.
Based on color, based on change. Because here's the important part. We have got to make change in this country, not little changes around the edge. Big structural change. That's why I'm in this fight.
All right. So you talked about Washington in your opening statement.
I did.
So what's happening at the moment, Robert Mueller is on the hot seat.
Yep.
He said the president is not exonerated of obstruction of justice.
That's
Your
right.
thoughts?
So read the Mueller report, and it makes 3 central points. The first one is that a hostile foreign government attacked our 2016 election for the purpose of helping then-candidate Donald Trump. Footnotes documents clearly lays this out. Part 2, then-candidate Donald Trump welcomed that help. And then Part 3, once the federal government started investigating that attack, now President Donald Trump did everything he could to obstruct justice. We have to make clear, no one is above the law, not even the President of the United States. It is time to bring impeachment charges against him.
And that goes to my next question. The NAACP approved a resolution for the articles of impeachment to begin. What say you about that, particularly as Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, is not for impeachment right now?
I understand that there are people who, for political reasons, say it's not where we want to be. But in my view, some things are above politics. And one of them is our constitutional responsibilities to do what is right. And the responsibility of the Congress of the United States of America, when a president breaks the law, is to bring impeachment charges against that president. My view is, whether it would pass the Senate or not, I've heard this argument, this is a moment in history, and every single person in Congress should be called on to vote and then to live with that vote for the rest of their lives.
Your campaign slogan is, "I have a plan for that."
It didn't start out that way.
Well, okay.
No, but there are just a lot of plans, a lot of things we need to do.
So what is your plan to bridge the economic disparities for Black and Brown America in areas of home ownership and access to capital?
All right. So let me do these. I have a plan. Yeah.
Tell us your
to
plan.
build about 3.2 million new housing units in this country. The federal government has backed out of doing that. We need to do this. This would be housing for middle-class Americans, for working-class Americans, for the working poor, for the poor, for the homeless, for people with disabilities, for seniors that want to age in place. It would reduce rents overall by about 10%, produce about 1.5 million new jobs that can't be sent over to China or someplace else. But a part of this housing plan looks at why we have so much disparity in this country, and it's because of redlining. At a time, generation after generation, the federal government subsidized housing purchases for white people, while it discriminated against housing purchases for African Americans. And that shows up in intergenerational wealth. So my proposal not only builds new housing units, helps refurbish all of our housing in America and bring down housing costs, but specifically sets money aside to say that in formerly redlined areas or places where people lost their homes during the housing crash that focused on families of color and communities of color, we're going to do first-time buyer assistance and get more African Americans into home ownership. That's how you make a difference. And since you asked about entrepreneurship as well, you know, we have an entrepreneurship gap in America. Right now, whites are about twice as likely to be able to start a successful small business as African Americans. And the principal reason for that, it's not because people don't have good ideas, not because they don't work hard, it's because they don't have capital. They don't have the cash to get started. I'm not talking about loans. You got to be paying back loans from the beginning. They don't have capital, in part traced back to redlining and the problems we've got in creating a black-white wealth gap. So I got a plan for that.
Okay.
It'll take about $7 billion to close that gap. But I propose a fund, and I've got it fully paid for, just like my housing plan, to take $7 billion and make it available for equity for entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs who are getting started, entrepreneurs who want to build their businesses. These are the upfront investments that often make the big difference between whether a business can succeed or fail. One other part, this $7 billion fund is going to be administered by people of color, by women, by people who are usually shut out of the investment decision. We know that people making investment decisions tend to pick people who look just like them. So instead of having a bunch of white guys run this, we're going to make this an investment fund that looks like the people who need a chance to be able to build their own businesses.
That sounds great.
Good.
But at the end of the day, how are you going to pay for it?
Oh, I got paid for on this.
Okay,
Ready?
tell me.
All right.
I'm ready.
Because this is
What's your
so
plan?
fun.
I've got a plan for that.
A wealth tax. It's time for America to put a wealth tax in place. This is a 2-cent tax on the top 0.1% of fortunes in this country. So your first $50 million, free and clear. But for your, I know you're relaxing now. For your 50 millionth and first dollar, you got to pitch in 2 cents. And 2 cents for every dollar after that. That produces enough money, think about this, to provide universal child care for every baby in this country age 0 to 5, universal pre-K for every 3-year-old and 4-year-old in this country, raise the wages of every child care worker and preschool teacher to the professional levels they deserve.
We're now in our closing statements.
Provide technical school, community college, and 4-year college for every one of our kids. Put $50 billion into historically black colleges and universities. Cancel student loan debts for 95% of those who've got them. And put $7 billion into my entrepreneurship fund.
I thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have closing remarks. It went by fast, but closing remarks.
We need to make change in this country. Not just to get rid of Donald Trump and go back to the way things were. A country that elects a man like Donald Trump has serious problems. And we need to make big structural change. We need to have the courage to attack head-on the problems that infect this country, and we need to make those changes. Here's how I see it. Yeah, I got a lot of plans, but if you want to get something done, you better have a plan for it.
All right.
You good?
And you got a plan for it. And we have 41 seconds left. 40 seconds. Anything else you want to add?
I want you to know this. My daddy ended up as a janitor. I had a dream all my life, and that was to be a public school teacher, but no chance to go to college because my family didn't have the money. My big chance in life was a commuter college that back then cost $50 a semester. I have lived opportunity, and I am committed down to my toes that every child in this country will have opportunity. That's why I'm in this fight for president.
Senator, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I so appreciate you. Thank you so much. First candidate at the forum, Senator Elizabeth Warren.